Larry, a kind-hearted old man, owned a unique property, a lush, green stretch of land that stood out in the heart of an increasingly urbanized town. His land was his sanctuary, a pocket of nature amid an ever-expanding sea of concrete. While many admired his dedication to preserving this oasis, others viewed his claim on the land as an obstacle to progress. For years, housing developers tried to buy the property, offering hefty sums for it, but Larry's response was always the same, a polite but firm refusal. The developers could not comprehend Larry's steadfastness. To them, his resistance made no sense. Why would anyone hold on to a parcel of land that could easily fetch millions? What was so special about this place that made it untouchable? The mystery surrounding his unwavering attachment to the land deepened with each rejected offer. But one day, everything became clear, unraveling a story that none of the developers had anticipated. Larry's property, though relatively modest now, had once been a vast, sprawling wilderness. In his younger years, Larry owned not just this patch of land, but the entire surrounding area. It was a breathtaking expanse of forest teeming with life. Streams meandered through the trees, wildlife thrived, and the air was filled with the symphony of chirping birds and rustling leaves. But before we start, smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our upcoming stories. Larry purchased the land in the 1960s, a dreamer who wanted to create a haven for his family. With the help of his wife, he cultivated part of the land, carving out space for a warm, inviting home. They built a life together surrounded by nature, and Larry vowed to preserve the forest's beauty for future generations. For years, life was idyllic. The couple raised their children amidst the trees, teaching them to cherish the natural world and live harmoniously with it. But as Larry grew older, maintaining the vast estate became increasingly challenging. Though he longed for the forest to remain wild and untamed, he realized that preserving it required effort and resources. Reluctantly, he made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He sold portions of the land. When a buyer approached Larry, claiming to share his love for nature, the old man felt a flicker of hope. This man promised to protect the forest, assuring Larry that his values aligned with Larry's own. The two struck a deal, and Larry believed he had found a kindred spirit who would honor his dream. But the promises were lies. Shortly after the sale, Larry witnessed the first signs of betrayal. Trees were felled along the edges of the forest, replaced by heavy machinery and construction crews. More and more people in suits arrived, their presence a grim herald of the destruction to come. It wasn't long before Larry discovered the truth: the buyer had sold the land to housing developers for profit. Heartbroken, Larry watched helplessly as his cherished forest was transformed. The place that had been a sanctuary for his family and a testament to his love for nature was now being erased, replaced by rows of cookie-cutter homes and asphalt roads. Worse still, he knew he was complicit in its destruction. The deed had his signature, and no amount of regret could undo the damage. From that moment on, Larry made a solemn vow he would never sell another inch of his land. No matter the cost, no matter how many developers came knocking, he would protect what little remained of his dream. It wasn't just about preserving the land, it was about honoring his family's legacy and ensuring that some semblance of the past endured. As the years passed, the transformation of the surrounding area was stark and unrelenting. The once vast forest became a bustling urban landscape, filled with apartment complexes, strip malls, and paved streets. The wildlife that once thrived in the area dwindled, displaced by the ceaseless march of development. Yet amid this concrete jungle, Larry's green parcel of land remained untouched. It stood as a stubborn reminder of what the town had lost, a vivid patch of green surrounded by gray. His property became an anomaly, a living fossil of the town's history. But Larry's resolve came at a cost. As he aged, maintaining the land became more difficult. His mobility decreased, and the once joyful work of tending to the garden and grounds turned into a physically taxing chore. Despite this, Larry refused to let go. He clung to the land, not just out of love, but as a defiant stand against a world that seemed determined to erase everything he held dear. A thorn in the developer's side. For the housing developers, Larry's refusal to sell was an endless source of frustration. They viewed his land as the missing piece in their puzzle of prime location that could unlock new opportunities for expansion. Over the years, they tried everything from formal letters to persuasive meetings. They offered generous sums of money, more than enough for Larry to live comfortably in his twilight years. But no amount of money could sway him. Larry's refusals became legendary, earning him a reputation as a stubborn old man who wouldn't budge. Some developers even resorted to more aggressive tactics, but these only solidified Larry's resolve. One particularly heated encounter ended with Larry chasing a suited man off his property with a pitchfork. The standoff was wearing on everyone. Larry, now in his 80s, grew increasingly weary of the constant harassment. The developers, in turn, were tired of their efforts being thwarted. Something had to give, and it finally did, though not in the way anyone expected. After years of conflict, the developers decided to try a different approach. Instead of sending a large delegation or making grand offers, they sent a small group of representatives dressed in casual clothes. Their goal was simple: to have a genuine conversation with Larry. When they knocked on his door, Larry answered cautiously, his usual wariness tempered by curiosity. For the first time, he allowed the developers into his home, a decision that would reveal the true depth of his connection to the land. As Larry led the developers through his house, they were struck by its eccentricity. Each room was uniquely decorated, almost like stepping into a different world. One room was bright pink and filled with stuffed bunnies. Another resembled a botanical garden with vines and plants covering every surface, and yet another was stacked with old newspapers nearly reaching the ceiling. "What is this place?" one of the developers muttered, unable to hide his bewilderment. The house was like a museum of memories, each room frozen in time. Yet as the developers walked through, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Despite the abundance of personal touches, there was no sign of other people living in the house. When they reached Larry's study, one of the developers finally asked the question on everyone's mind, "Where is your family?" Larry's expression darkened. His hands trembled as he lowered himself into a worn rocking chair. With a heavy sigh, he revealed the truth: his family was gone, lost in a tragic car accident decades ago. He was the sole survivor. The decorated rooms, Larry explained, belonged to his wife and children. His wife had loved gardening, so he built her an indoor greenhouse. His daughter adored pink and collected stuffed animals, while his son had been a budding scientist with a room full of experiments and gadgets. "I never changed a thing," Larry said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not one toy, not one book." For decades, the house had been more than a home. It was a shrine to the family he had lost. The newspaper room was a testament to his grief, filled with clippings about the accident. It was painful for the developers to witness, and they began to understand why Larry clung so fiercely to his land. It wasn't just about the property, it was about preserving a connection to the life he once had. After hearing Larry's story, the developers realized they couldn't force him to sell. Doing so would destroy the last piece of his identity. But one of them had an idea, an alternative that could honor Larry's wishes while benefiting the community. The proposal was to transform Larry's land into a public park. The central house would remain untouched, serving as a historical landmark and a personal sanctuary for Larry. The surrounding land would be reforested, creating a green space for the town to enjoy. Larry was initially skeptical, but as the developers described their vision, he began to see the potential. The idea of restoring some of the forest's beauty resonated deeply with him. By the end of the conversation, he agreed to the plan, provided that the park would prioritize nature and reflect the spirit of the original forest. Over the next year, Larry's land underwent a transformation. The developers kept their word, creating a park that honored the land's history. Native trees were planted, ponds were restored, and trails were added to encourage exploration. The park became a sanctuary for both people and wildlife. Larry's house stood at the heart of it all, a symbol of resilience and a reminder of the land's origins. For the first time in years, Larry felt a sense of peace. His family's legacy was preserved, and his property had become a gift to the community. One day, as Larry strolled through the park, he encountered a young boy playing with a ball. The boy's laughter reminded Larry of his own children, bringing a bittersweet smile to his face. When the boy's mother approached to thank him for his generosity, she offered to help Larry with tasks around the house. Over time, their friendship blossomed, and Larry began to let go of the past. With her encouragement, he cleared out some of the rooms, making space for new memories while still cherishing the old. Larry's land, once a battleground for progress and preservation, became a beacon of hope. The park brought the community together, teaching future generations the value of nature and resilience. And for Larry, it was a chance to heal a bridge between his past and a brighter future. In his final years, Larry often sat on his porch, watching children play and birds return to the trees. His dream had finally been realized, and his family's legacy lived on in the hearts of all who visited his green haven.